Ladies and gentlemen, welcome into episode 2 of Good Take. I'm Alex Hutton, alongside my good friend Zevan Schuster. Good to see you again.
Good to see you too, man. How you doing?
I'm doing all right. I'm doing well. Obviously, it's a weird time. Not a whole lot of updates that I can provide on my life. Just kind of hanging around, going about life, kind of the same way. How about you?
I made my way into season 8 of The Office last night, so I was I got through when Michael Scott left, so that was very sad.
Yeah, no, big emotional.
It's not the same without him.
No, of course not. Have you started watching season 8 or?
I'm like a few episodes in. Ed Helms or Andy. He's a good boss. So good. I just finished the episode where he tried to he made a bet that he would get a tattoo on his ass.
Mm-hmm.
And the whole office worked hard to motivate themselves so they could go and see it.
Mm-hmm.
So that was pretty funny.
Okay.
It was good. So
yeah, you'll have to let me know how the rest of it turns out. How you feel about it? So.
I think Netflix is good. When it's a sometimes thing. Just the problem with quarantine is that it's there all the time, so it's not a reward. It's I use it as my go-to too often, as opposed to just a break every once in a while. So it loses some of its touch, but it's still fun. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Before we get going today, I think we just want to send our best wishes to the family of Jerry Sloan, also to Patrick Ewing, diagnosed with the coronavirus the other day. Hope he's doing well. Obviously, two basketball legends there. So,
sure. Yeah, I think John Starks had a tweet that he said, Warriors on and off the court, and I'll be there for you. So hopefully, yeah, I wish everyone happiness and health, and hope everyone can pull through tough times, regardless of what their situation may be. So.
Yeah, absolutely, for sure. And even though there aren't a ton of new games being played right now, there's still been massive developments in the sports world over this last week. All this talk about coming back, plans are sort of making progress of being developed with how you can bring the season back in a safe way. Big stuff happening.
Yeah, I'm starting to get excited. I'm caught in between. I'm getting excited, but I don't want myself to get my hopes up too high, because there's still obviously skepticism, which is understandable on my part and on many people's part. But I'm starting to hear rumors man, it's going to be Orlando, it's going to be Vegas, it's going to be Orlando and Vegas. You hear, there's a phone call that Chris Paul held with LeBron, Steph, KD, pretty much every star but James Harden, which I found a little bit hilarious. Again, he was nowhere to be found in May. I had to get that joke off. It was on Twitter, so I did not come up with that myself. But no, the murmurs are starting to become, I don't know, louder whispers. I don't even know what the progression of that might be, but it's looking more and more likely. So I'm becoming very cautiously optimistic about that. How about that?
I would say I'm in a similar place. I just still think there's risks to it because, think about all the things that need to happen. You need to isolate the teams. There needs to be regular testing of every single player and coach and operative in the whole league. And at a time where testing in the U.S. is a lot scarcer than it should be, that's not a great look if, these professional sports leagues that are with billions of dollars and, millions of dollars for each person at stake, if they're getting just tested, being able to get tested every single day or every single week or whatever it ends up being, I think that's just sort of a bad look publicity wise. And it's just very tough to pull off because every single league, even without fans, involves thousands of people. So there's just sort of still a lot of risks involved in that way.
So I think for me, and it's unfortunate that the whole timing is unfortunate for baseball. I heard, I think Tom Verducci said to Doug Gottlieb that he's it's no exaggeration that the future of baseball could be on the line in the next 2 weeks. And I think unfortunately for baseball to have any long season, you're right, they probably need too many tests. It doesn't bother me as much that they're going to be taking up so many tests. I feel at this point, from what I've read, they're at least a little bit more widely available. And I would still be under the presumption that, gosh, if you're going to bring back the NBA season, you're going to bring back 16 or 20 teams, right? You're not going to bring back the whole league, and it's only for a short amount of time.
Right.
So it shouldn't be for quite as long. Baseball would be baseball would be a long adventure. So I think that seems a little bit baseball kind of got screwed with with the timing of this. Just like what if this would have happened, in October, at the start of the basketball season? It would have been a tough thing. It would have been tough.
Mm-hmm.
I think for the NBA, they just have to finish the season and crown a champion. Versus for baseball, they need to play the whole freaking season.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a tougher venture. To pull off.
And even with the NBA, there's risks though, because like using the NBA as an example, just to name a random player, if Matthias Thybulle, for instance, tests positive or breaks
then he has to quarantine for 14 days, and that's just
but then what I'm saying is because of the ripple effect of these things, that throws everything off. Just if that one guy has those issues.
Why does it throw? Well, what if his teammates don't test positive for it? Then they can keep playing, and then he has to be quarantined, and that would suck for Philly.
That's true, but there's these whole risks of how long it takes to show signs that you have the virus, plus the rest of his team and the coaches and everything, and they're going to be playing other teams. So there's the risk there of just this massive ripple effect of who ends up getting it and where it gets passed around. And it can be really hard to track.
No,
so,
I mean, I get that, and if you're going to test players like every day, which is probably what will need to happen, or every other day, then they won't have had it for too long before people find out if they do indeed have it. So I don't think it'll be too treacherous of an outcome, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Plus, like at a certain point, I mean, I'll bet quite a bit of money that someone is going to test positive. Someone is going to test positive rather for it at some point.
Mm-hmm.
So I think some concessions are going to have to be made if these seasons are going to finish.
Mm-hmm.
We can act like it doesn't play a role, but there's a lot of money to be lost if it doesn't happen. And so again, obviously lives are more important, but people are at least going to take into account the economic and the monetary value of what could or could not be lost. And that's I certainly I don't blame them for it at all.
Mm-hmm.
So it should be a factor.
Yeah, I know. I don't disagree, but I'm just thinking about, is there any situation in which one or two positive tests or one or two people just making mistakes doesn't throw the whole thing off? Do you think that's possible?
I mean, look, I think if someone comes into contact but doesn't actually have the disease, because you're going to be testing players so frequently, let's say daily, you'll know if they have it. Like they will not have had it for very long until people find out that they had it. For the moment that they get this virus, they will know that they had it at least 24 hours later at the maximum. I've also heard some reports that maybe at some point, eventually they'll have this thing where if you lick the little testing thing, it'll tell you right away. Look, I think if you don't have the virus, you can play. If you have it, quarantine for 14 days, and then look, if LeBron gets it, he has to quarantine, which would suck, but it is what it is.
Yeah. So I just heard a quote from an MLB executive the other day that said we don't have a good plan. We just have varying degrees of bad plans. And I think that's true, honestly, that no matter what they do, there's always going to be some level of risk to it. There's always going to be some concern.
There's a limit to what you can do. Plus, not even to mention, just to touch on baseball one more time before we move on. Mm-hmm. Man, the suggestions that have been thrown out have been to play at the spring training facilities. Dude, you know how much the home run totals are going to be inflated for that year?
Mm-hmm.
The fences are shorter. The pitchers probably won't even be in their best shape to begin with. And I mean, to not have crowds, it seems like you wouldn't be overly adrenaline. You wouldn't have too much adrenaline to where you would swing it at a curveball. You see, during spring training, you'll have these guys hit phenomenally well because there's just not as much pressure. So I think people. I mean, it would obviously there wouldn't be 162 games, but I don't know. I think people's, for a variety of factors, that the offense would be scorching on up. So
yeah, you mentioned the whole thing of sports without fans. One thing I will say is I think it can still work and still be entertaining without fans. I think it'll still be well watched and people want to check it out and still get involved in it, even without, the factor of the crowd noise and the adrenaline in that way. I think you saw that with the UFC fight that went on without fans.
Yeah.
I mean, just the reaction to it on social media, stuff like the knockout that Ngannou had was this huge thing online. Even that, like, it felt like it was kind of the same reaction to it, regardless of whether or not there have been fans in the arena that night, and it still works. And so that part of it gave me hope.
Yeah, I mean, I watched most of the pay-per-view with my dad, and it was phenomenal. I mean, especially I think for a sport like that, and for a sport like basketball, where there's a lot of, we'll say smack talk, trash talk, SHI bleep talk. I think that there's a lot of stuff that I think people will find cool and interesting about, sort of seeing like sort of like behind the scenes look. There's obviously been, mic'd up in the NFL. There's been, you have the coaches who are like huddles, or they're mic'd up in the huddles, and you get to hear them a little bit. Obviously, like with no crowd, and I'm guessing the announcers probably wouldn't be there in person. You'll get to hear, LeBron and Kawhi talking, jump to each other up and down the floor, which I think could be really cool. I think there will be some, at least until this thing is in the past. I think it'll be kind of a cool behind the scenes look for fans to get to see and hear things that they wouldn't otherwise normally get to see.
Yeah, I heard one proposal one time that said like the NBA and the NHL and all these leagues should go like sort of give more in-depth access to fans during the playoffs, whether it's more mics or more behind the scenes looks and things like that. They should get them even more involved in the action at times like that, and this would be a really interesting way to, I think, test that out.
Listen, right now, man, there's no bad idea. Well, there's no bad ideas that shouldn't be entertained. I think everything should be on the table. All of our lives are going to have an asterisk over the next, 6 to 8 to 12 to 18 months. So try everything. If you screw up, I think people will probably give you more slack at this point anyway. So I don't think there won't be quite as much media scrutiny. So I think trying things, seeing what sticks, seeing what you can then bring back once times become more normal again, whatever that new normal might be, I think it's something that all the leagues should explore. So anyways, what are you most excited for when we do eventually get back to sports?
I'm excited for, all these players. Every single sport is such a grinding season. So I'm excited to see all these players, come back with like sort of well rested, ready to go, whether that's LeBron or Kawhi or Giannis or, Ovechkin, if we're talking NHL, just all these players who've had this time off to sort of rejuvenate and refresh themselves. I think it's kind of a relatively even playing field. I don't think this benefits one team significantly more than it benefits any other, just because of how long this layoff has been, that everybody's just been waiting around for so long, that it sort of gives everybody the same advantage or disadvantage, depending on how you look at it. So I'm just ready for all these players to come back, hopefully at 100% or close to it, and be ready to go for hopefully what should be some really good playoffs.
Yeah. So one thing I will say, like a quick note, is I've always kind of wondered in the back of my head, man, like what would happen if the playoffs, we're at the very beginning of the season and players could be like well rested and healthy. I have plenty. I mean, we all have plenty of recollections of guys who just got hurt, because the season was just such a long grind. They got banged up over 82 games and a few playoff series. Obviously, you have Steph in 2016 with the knee. You have, KD got hurt last year. LeBron's had injury. I mean, Chris Paul has had a ton of injuries. And so it's, I've always wondered, like, man, for guys who start off the season feeling fresh and their body feels good, because they've had such a few months to just rejuvenate, like, what would happen if the playoffs actually were at the beginning? That way, you'd actually be fresh and healthy. And so I think there's an argument to be made that, yes, okay, perhaps in the beginning it won't be quite as well played because guys will have been out for a while. But I think at this point, guys know the deal. Players are working out. There was a report that LeBron is having private workouts and everyone's getting tested, people, so don't freak out. But he's having workouts with his Laker teammates to get them prepared. So I think, look, maybe after the first few games, I think it might actually be the most well-played playoffs that we've seen in a long time.
Yeah. I think it's important.
That shouldn't be a hot take, but, maybe it is. But
I think there's gonna be some kind of training camp, hoping they 3-4
Exactly.
weeks, maybe something like that, just to get everybody back into shape and ready to
Exactly.
go. Get everybody practicing again, get the chemistry back.
So
So
I think people will be. I think the players will be like well rested. They'll be back up to speed, like you mentioned, and they'll have they'll have had a lot more rest heading into the biggest month or two of the season.
yeah, exactly. And the
Sure.
fans will still want to wrap themselves up in the action and
For
all the
sure.
social media discussions and have watch parties. Obviously, maybe not in person watch parties, but virtual watch parties
No
for
man.
their teams and all
And
that
listen,
stuff.
and like yeah, I agree. And everyone will still want to clown Kendrick Perkins' stupid tweets and ignorant and terrible takes on Twitter. So
Hmm. Yeah,
I had that end. So.
and that was something I was thinking about. Is do you think in a situation like this, what I think from the thing I mentioned earlier, do you think there are any winners and losers in specific teams or players in this kind of setup?
Yeah, so I don't think there's necessarily any losers. I think that the Clippers are definitely the team that could benefit the most from this. I mean, you saw like the record with everyone healthy was like 10-0, which maybe they'd like only played like 10 or 12 games with their whole roster healthy. Obviously, you have Kawhi. I mean, geez, Kawhi. I love the guy. He's a great player. Dude, the dude better not load manage for another freaking second. He's had months to load manage. No more load management. Obviously, Paul George started off the season banged up. They both. The Clippers have had a lot of injuries. They've had guys, especially their best two, George and Leonard, have missed time. So I think now for them, you finally play as a cohesive unit. Everyone should be healthy and fresh and in shape, and so they shouldn't have to rest or play with only parts of their team or most of their team. They should have their whole unit back together. So hopefully they should be able to peak at the right time.
Hmm. Yeah, I also think a lot of the same things go for the Bucks because they've been one of the best teams in the league, probably the best team in the league, pretty much all season. But right when this started, they went on a 3-game losing streak, and then when the season stopped, they'd lost 3 in a row. So they had a chance to gather themselves and recalibrate and sort of get everybody back at the speed. Because I think the Bucks are really really good, and I think when they had that kind of break, it gives them a chance to sort of gather themselves and figure things back out again. And they had a chance to say, okay, where did it start going wrong over those 3 games? And obviously,
Sure.
it's been a little bit longer than that now for it to matter too much, but it's still giving them more time.
I agree. I think this is obviously going to be a big playoffs for them. Because of the 6'10" athletic elephant in the room in Giannis. So this is gonna be big for them anyway. So I think any rest or any recuperation that they could have, I think will be good. I think we should also mention the Nets too. I mean, Joe
Yeah.
Harris went on a podcast and said he was literally going to announce that he was out for a month, like the day after the season got canceled. Kyrie's posted on social media that he's playing basketball again. There's been some rumors about KD, although I know Woj reported that he's not going to come back. But man, if this thing goes late into the summer, like I'm sorry, at a certain point, I mean, I don't know. I know it's like that level of intensity, right? Right away for him might be a little bit too much, but at least I mean the Nets are certainly going to entertain the idea. Then you have, like I said, Harris. You have Kyrie Irving. By the way, Spencer Dinwiddie with his with his
Yeah,
Bitcoin
with his
contract.
failed Bitcoin initiative.
I'm sorry. Why are it's a cool idea, but why are fans going to pay a $24 million contract in the middle of a pandemic?
Yeah,
In the middle of an
and to
economic
Spencer
recession.
Dinwiddie of all players, like that's not like the.
And like he's good. I would love for him on the Warriors.
Player, but he's not the guy that fans are going to shell out money to.
But no, people don't have money to shell out. Like
Yeah,
no one. So it was a cool idea, and I think it could be tweaked and adjusted. So anyway, but I think the Nets, I think the Bucks. You're right. And in the West, I would definitely say the Clippers for sure.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know how much you've been paying attention to this. Do you have anybody you've seen in the NHL who you feel like has really benefited or not benefited from?
Like I think they've all probably gone on a bunch of fishing trips, and done like on had like virtual beer drinking on Zoom. They'll be fine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just throw out a few names really quick. The Jets, the Predators, and the Hurricanes were all getting hot right when the season got suspended. All three had sort of jumped into better playoff standing, improved it, or gotten into playoff position. I think the winners are the Stars, because they had been slipping a little bit right when it happened, and the Canucks, because they're right behind the Predators in the standings when the Predators and now that this sort of season stopped, the Predators were seemingly getting hot, and then the season came to the screeching halt. So it gives everybody a chance to get back going again. Do you think that this season for any team there's an asterisk next to the title for any league?
I mean, yes, but no. I mean, obviously the season is different, but I mean everyone's playing under the same rules. It's sort of like when there's 2 feet of snow at a football game, or there's a rainstorm. Look, man, both teams are playing under the same conditions. It is what it is. Like I said, everyone's life in this country and probably all over the world, at least for the next 6 months to a year to 18 months, it's going to be a little bit, asterisk-y. It's going to have a bit of an asterisk no matter what. So I don't think it is. It's none of these guys' fault. They're all playing under the same conditions. I think it's fine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I kind of feel the same way. Like you said, everyone's under the same circumstances. There's an asterisk only in the sense of just, hey, this was a weird season. This was a weird year. Like there's no asterisk when there's a lockout or a strike shortened season or anything like that. It's just sort of whoever ends up winning it in those circumstances wins it because everyone was playing under the same conditions. And I kind of feel like you have to think of it the same way.
Yeah, if LeBron wins, I will give him full credit, and if he chokes in the finals again, we'll talk about that too. So, which I would not rule out, by the way.
Yeah, I 100% agree.
For sure.
All right. We're gonna take a short little break. Right now, we'll be back with more of episode 2 of Good Take right after this. Stay tuned.
So I just want to give one correction from the last podcast. I said that in LeBron's 8 finals runs from 2011 to 2018 that he only faced 4 first-team All-NBAers in those 8 consecutive finals runs. He actually faced 5. Derrick Rose and Dwight Howard both made it in 2011 and 2012, and Joakim Noah made it in 2014. This episode of Good Take is brought to you by, well, we don't have any sponsors quite yet, but Alex and his brother made a really cool t-shirt. The shirt diagrams Cal's game-winning play in the 2019 big game against the Stanford Cardinal, and it's the perfect thing to add for all Cal fans and football fans to their closets. To check out that and more, go to Alex's Twitter handle at AlexHutton35 to see that and everything else that he has to offer. All right, welcome back to episode 2 of the Good Take podcast. Next up, we're going to discuss the last year's Super Bowl. I know that was a tough one for both of us. For those who don't know, I'm a Niners fan in addition to being a Colts fan. So you can think that that's weird, but that's the way my family allegiances lined up. February was a tough one for both of us. But it got sort of rehashed this past week because Emmanuel Sanders went on First Things First. The show with Nick Wright. And they were asking about the pass that he almost caught that was just overthrown in the Super Bowl. That would have been the game-winning pass to win the Super Bowl, and it just didn't quite happen. And he says he's like, yeah, I'm never gonna forget that it almost happened. How on a scale of 1 to 10, how much did your blood boil when you saw that clip and saw what he said, and then were reminded of the traumatic event that occurred on February 3rd?
That's a good question. We're not going to play the clip just because we're not sure about the copyright issues of playing clips from other networks and everything. But I don't know when it actually happened during that game after they lost. I was at a legit 9.9 or 10. Now that I've had some time to reflect on it, I'm closer. Like when I saw that clip, I'm closer like maybe a 6 or something. It still makes me angry. But the bigger thing to me is that pass. Yes, it's annoying that it was overthrown. He had a shot and he missed him, but like that happens all the time. to me, the bigger way in which the 49ers lost that Super Bowl is.
Hey, but there was 2 minutes left in the Super Bowl. It shouldn't happen then. It's not the first quarter of Week 6. Yes, it happens all the time, but you have to come through in a big spot.
The bottom line is that pass doesn't matter if they just run the ball after that second interception on Mahomes. If on that weird play where Mahomes throws it behind the receiver, it gets tipped, and it ends up with the 49ers. If they just start running the ball after that, they can just probably just run out the clock. The Chiefs don't have a great run defense. The Niners have good running backs and good blockers. And if they decide to just run the ball instead of throwing it on both second and third down, they can start killing the clock, keep it out of Mahomes' hands. And I don't see that was the thing that will always, yes, as a 49ers fan, but just as a watcher of football in general, that is the thing that will always boggle my mind about that game.
Yeah.
Why do they not run the ball?
It was second and long, and I think Shanahan thought, well, if it's a third and long and an obvious passing situation, it's less likely that they would get it. So I think that's why he tried the play action, and it just didn't work. And then then you're in third and long, and Jimmy's not quite he's not a superstar. He's not quite at the superstar level yet that some of us thought he was after the New Orleans game when he outdueled Drew Brees on the road. That turned out to be an aberration.
Yeah,
and you're not wrong. But I think Shanahan's reasoning, Shanahan totally choked and totally gagged the Falcons Super Bowl when he was their offensive coordinator. This one was, to me, not quite as bad.
Mm. See, I go in the opposite direction. This is maybe my
28-3. They were up 10 points. They were up 25 against.
And here's why it's dumber, because he had an opportunity after that Super Bowl to learn from his mistakes about going play action and throwing the ball in obvious running situations and all these things. It was like the football god said, here's a second opportunity. You messed it up last time. Now do it right this time. And he screwed it up again. He did the exact same thing. It would have been better if they had ran the ball and gained 0 yards on second and third down than to end up doing what they actually did because you kill the clock.
I get that, but we also gave up like a 3rd and 18.
Say that again?
We also gave up a 3rd and 18.
That too. Yeah, but again, the ball is not in Mahomes' hands in that situation if they run the ball. It just isn't.
You think they get the first down? No.
I think they're more likely to get the first down than what it ended up actually happening.
Because I thought they handled the Packers game in the NFC Championship extraordinarily well. I was like, we both thought, Shanahan's learned his lesson.
I did too, yeah.
There was a few times because he's such a genius. He's such a good play caller, such just a great football mind. There's occasionally times in the regular season, like against Baltimore, he got a little bit too cute. I think there are times when he sort of overthinks it a little bit. I think that was,
Yeah,
I think he got a little bit too.
Part of the fourth quarter. I mean, he's great for a few quarters, and then in the fourth quarter he calls too many passes with the lead.
Just only in Super Bowl. Only in Super Bowls. Only in Super Bowls.
I feel weren't there a couple regular season games like the loss to the Seahawks, the game against the Cardinals on the road where Arizona almost came back at the end.
The loss to the Seahawks, the Seahawks scored all 3 of their touchdowns off of turnovers in our half of the field.
Yeah, well, I would argue that in the Seahawks game, and it didn't end up mattering because they ended up with winning the division, 1 seed anyway, yada yada yada. Like in that situation, as weird as it sounds, you have to play for the tie. They tried too hard to go 90 yards in 2 minutes or whatever it was, and thankfully for them it worked out by the end of the season. But if Hollister gains 6 more inches on that play and winds up at the end zone, then you go back to that game where they don't just try to run the clock down. And I get that it is an incredibly conservative way of looking at a football game. I'm very aware of that. But I think that is a situation where you have to factor in the whole season outlook and the situation you're in at that moment and play for the tie.
So, okay, I get that logic, and that may work in terms of just, like the unemotional, just, look at it like, practical kind of way. So, look, they passed it on all 3 downs. And they had 2, for people who don't remember, there's 2 minutes left in overtime, tie game. If they run the ball 3 times, the Seahawks had no timeouts. So they could have kneeled it 3 times and just walked off with the tie. I think the problem with what you're saying is, and yes, they should have ran it maybe one or two times, that way, in case, or, in the situation where they did have to punt it back to the Seahawks, then they would have less time. So they should have backed themselves up with the plan B to give Russell Wilson less time. So that was a mistake. But in terms of just giving up and not even trying to go down the field, I don't agree with that. Then
I'm not saying they should have taken a knee. I'm not saying they should have kneeled the ball 3 times. I'm just saying,
okay, but if,
run it a few times, see if you can bust something for 15 or 20 yards, and if you can do that, then you go for it.
So okay, I'm fine. Okay, so I'm fine with running the ball on first and second down, but then at some point you have to try and throw it down the field to get it in field goal range. You have to.
Yeah, and I can understand that, but the way they did it with
three passes, agreed. So look, Shanahan's not a perfect coach, and he's also, I would take him, over every coach the Niners have had this century, and with Harbaugh it's close. So
yeah, I just think that, like, I honestly wonder if we need to check Kyle Shanahan to see if he has some sort of memory loss disease where he forgets everything once every 3 years. Because how do you get placed in the same situation in 2 Super Bowls 3 years apart and make the same mistake again? I just don't get it. How he can remember what happened when he was with Atlanta and then still do the same thing that cost him again. Like, I would love to talk to him and understand his logic there.
Listen, I mean, LeBron lost in the finals once. He did it again, and 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 he did it 6th time. So, people repeat the same things. I'm not saying that you're wrong. I do think the situations are slightly different. And I think Mahomes is a lot like the Splash Brothers, as long as we're making the basketball analogy, and that, you can be outplayed for most of the game, and then you just have 5 good minutes, and then you win. So I think Shanahan just was foul. He put himself under too much pressure. He overthought himself. He tried to get too cute, and he stopped keeping it simple, and he didn't stick with what worked, and that was his undoing again.
And it is amazing to me how someone who's usually such a good coach most of the time,
I agree, and
fall apart.
Just run the ball and you win. I agree, but so here. But before we move on, amongst in between the 2 Bowl losses in our lifetime by the Niners, I know, but I know we disagree on which one was worse and harder to accept. So state your case, and then I'll state mine.
So I would argue that the more recent one, the one against the Chiefs, was harder than the one against the Ravens, just purely because in the Ravens one, they were down 22 points. Then there was the blackout, and they started coming back into the game. And yes, they came so close to winning, and I'm not arguing that. But they really had no business being in that game. That was a bizarre situation, a bizarre comeback. And whereas in this one, they had the lead and they had the ball with less than 10 minutes to go in the 4th quarter, up 2 scores. All they needed to do was just start running the ball and killing the clock, and they didn't do that. They very much controlled the game there. They did not control the game in the same way against the Ravens. Against the Ravens, they would have stolen a victory. Against the Chiefs, they let a victory slip away. And that is the difference to me, is that in the Ravens one, it would have felt more like they just sort of got lucky. In the one against the Chiefs,
lucky.
They just blew it.
Why
maybe not the right term, but you know what I'm saying, right? That it feels like they would have just snuck away with one. Against the Chiefs, it really felt like they had it and then just lost it. Okay,
I hear you, and maybe this is a part of me that thinks, man, Patrick Mahomes is just too good. Like we got beat by someone who was incredible, and yes, we did blow it, but dude, against the Ravens. So number one, we gave up 34 points to Joe Flacco. I know he was on a hot streak, but like, come on, we lost to Joe Flacco. We shouldn't have lost. Kaepernick was probably one of the 5 best quarterbacks in the league at that point. We had a great defense. Alden Smith, Justin Smith, Navarro Bowman, Patrick Will. You had Ahmad Brooks. So you had Deshaun Goldson. You had like a stacked Dante Whitter. You had a stacked defense. So we had no business giving up that many points to Baltimore. That's number one. Number two, okay, we have second and goal on the 5-yard line, 5 yards to win the Super Bowl. Okay, Frank Gore, our boy, first ballot Hall of Famer, one of the probably one of the most universally liked and respected players in any sport that I've ever seen, did not touch the ball one time, not one time, with a chance to win the Super Bowl. And that is after he had been there, for years under Mike Nolan, years under Mike Singletary, years under a terrible offensive line with Alex Smith, who at that point in his career was an injured bum. He had no help. Defenses could key in on him, and he still had over 1,000 yards rushing year after year after year. And we finally had a chance to be like, hey, here you go, man. Take it off. There's a famous quote with Walter Payton, who he didn't get a chance to score a touchdown in the Super Bowl, and I believe it was 85. And he said, like, I always held it against Ditka. I always it always sort of ate at me. And man, we had a chance to make all those years for Frank Gore come full circle. Pay it back to him. And we look, if we give it to him once and he gets stuffed, that's fine. But man, like we didn't even give him a chance, and then we throw it to Crabtree 3 times in a row. Seriously. And then especially when you put it into context where our year ended the next year by Kaepernick trying to throw it to Crabtree again. I mean, why? I mean, look, Kaepernick's his touch on his passes was never his forte. Crabtree as a possession receiver was never his forte. He was always a more finesse, route runner type of receiver. So neither one of those guys in either end of the pass was either one of their strengths. And we had probably the best running back we've ever had, who had been there through so many tough, crappy, shitty years, and we didn't even give him a chance to pull it up.
Look,
we didn't give him a chance to win the Super Bowl. I'm not even one. We had 4 chances. We had 3 chances. Second goal from the 5.
I am not saying that doesn't suck. It does. Of course it does. But the debate here is not which one sucks and which one doesn't. It is just which one sucks worse. Right. And
also, we gave it to LaMichael James before we gave it to Frank Gore.
Yes, all that is true, and I'm not denying that. And it was really, really, really tough to watch. But a couple things I will say about that is, one, they were down by 22 points in the second half of that game. They really had no business being in that game. And the first,
but they got back in the game though.
The fact that they had come back at all was something of a miracle in and of itself. So there's that. And so just being the fact they made it close felt like something of a victory. When you were leading the game by 10 points,
I guess 10
minutes to go, and you don't just start running out the clock, and then it comes back around to bite you, to the point that the Chiefs wound up with the ball with the lead. So the Niners defense has to sell out, and they give the big touchdown run to Williams to kind of close things. That was just so brutal to me that I think it's just worse. And the other thing is, after the loss to the Ravens, it didn't feel like the 49ers were done. It felt like they were going to be fighting for the Super Bowl for years to come. Now, obviously, that didn't end up coming to fruition because sort of things with Harbaugh got ugly and everything started to fall apart.
Are they not going to be in contention for the next few years?
It feels like this season kind of might have been the dream season, like the one to get it done. I mean, they were. There's something in an argument to be made that they were the third best team in the NFC after the Saints and the Seahawks, and they were lucky not to run into them in the playoffs. And
the Warriors were lucky not to play the Spurs and the Clippers in 2015.
I got you. And so there's that. It just ended, and now they don't have Buckner anymore. It feels like this was the year to do it.
We drafted Javon Kinlaw though, and from everything I've seen.
He's good. I like that pick, but he's not going to be the same player right away. And it just feels like this was the time to do it. This was the opportunity. They had the game in their hands, and then they lost it. Whereas in the previous Super Bowl, they were incredibly lucky to get back in that game, and then mess it up at the very end when they would have had a chance. And that's where the difference comes into me.
No, listen, I agree with you that this is not about which one sucks and which one doesn't. It's about which one sucks worse. To not give Frank Gore, a bite at the apple, that will always eat at me. It always will. That I will never get over that. So I'm never get over this past Super Bowl either. Like I think the Niners probably outperformed and overachieved this year from what they perhaps should have. And look, I think they actually might be better this year. even though they'll probably have a worse record and might not go as far. I think they'll be a better team. But look, I mean, you have Jimmy G is going to get better. I think Shanahan will improve as a coach, even though, I get he might frustrate both of us. Look, they're going to sign Kittle to a long extension. They just got someone who AP called the best left tackle and the best offensive lineman in all of football, and Trent Williams for basically nothing. Dude, I mean, I like both their interior line play. I like their interior line play on both sides of the ball, rather. And then look, their skill positions are like pretty good. They're not. Are they A+? No, but Jimmy G has more than enough to work with. And then, especially, dude, their backfield is like stacked. I mean, they have Mostert. I think McKinnon's gonna have a big year finally. They have plenty of options to go on offense. They're not gonna lack for depth whatsoever. And then other than the secondary, I think this team can compete on every level on both sides of the ball. I really think they don't have any weaknesses other than their secondary.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah, it's just.
But by the way, I mean, if you have a good front seven, I'm fine with having an average to below average secondary.
Mm-hmm. I mean, so many things of this season though came together perfectly. It's the fact that they had. I mean, it's the fact that they had a relatively easy schedule that allowed them to just roll off a bunch of wins early in the season. It's the fact that the Seahawks and the Saints, both of whom might have had more pure football talent than the 49ers, both had some.
But wait, kind of sorry to cut you off, but can I just respond really quick? So the reason we didn't have to face the Saints in the playoffs was because we beat them on the road. So that's part of why they ended up falling to they didn't end up having to buy. They had to play the Vikings.
That road game was a 50-50 game that could have very easily gone in the other direction.
Of course, but dude, every season, I mean, we can go through every season probably and find close. I mean, how many close games did the Patriots have? When the Patriots won the Super Bowl, the only reason that they had home field in the AFC playoffs and they didn't end up having to play the Steelers was because the Steelers had the game won against the Pats, but Jesse James had the touchdown where he didn't have possession of the ball. And so the Pats ended up winning because they picked up Ben on the next play. It's like there's so many. I hear you, but there's so many games where one play here, one play there. So look, Shanahan just has to be smart, in close situations, and then Jimmy G has to come through. And if that happens, they'll win at least 10 or 11 games this upcoming year. I feel very confident.
But my point is they had so many things fell into place in a situation where they could be in the Super Bowl and all they needed to do was just start running the ball and running down the clock to win it. And they didn't do that because that head coach, it makes me so angry just thinking.
Look, I get it. But so let's keep in mind for next year. So they're going to play the two other first place teams in the NFC, or they're going to play three, but we'll focus on the divisions they don't play. They're going to play the Saints and the Packers next year. The Packers, I think, are not going to be a playoff team. I think they're the worst, most overrated 13-3 team there's ever been. You've already heard, rumors that Aaron Rodgers and Matt LaFleur are banging heads a little bit. I mean, they just drafted Aaron Rodgers backup. I mean, that's not going to go over well. Plus, dude, they're playing the AFC East and the NFC East. I mean, come on, they're going to play the Giants, the Redskins. They're going to play the Patriots without Brady. They're going to play the Jets, the Bills. I mean, and look, who knows what these teams are going to look like, but you can't tell me they're not going to have at least some modicum of success. Against at least in their division, at least in their games outside of the division. Mm-hmm. So they're going to be they're going to be in contention next year. Look, who knows? A lot of these games, a lot of these playoff games come down to a few plays. And so look, they're going to have to produce results differently, clearly. But they're going to be in the mix. For years to come. Who knows if they're going to have as good of an opportunity as they had last year, though. That may never happen again in our lifetimes. Mm-hmm. So that when it comes to that, I do share your frustration. So anyway, let's move on to another championship team.
Yeah,
another almost championship team.
Yeah, another team that almost won a title in 2019.
Yes.
It's been reported that LeBron's media company is producing some kind of short form documentary on the Astros cheating scandal. Are you looking? What do you think? What do you make of all of this stuff? Obviously, there's been so many details that's come out over the last few months. And it just seems like the story just keeps getting crazier and crazier. What do you make of all of it?
So, what do I make of it? The Astros are LUCKY that this season did not happen. They are so lucky because Lord knows everyone and their mother would have booed the crap out of them all season long, April through September. My dad was supposed to go to the second series of the season at the Oakland Coliseum. I texted him. I'm like, Dad, like, can you boo the hell out of him for me? I would love that. He's like, yeah, I got you. I can't wait. Like, man, dude, they would have had the weight of the world just, crush them this year. And they basically get, a year to sort of let the pain and anger sort of subside a little bit. So look, I'm sure people will boo them in 2021, but it's not going to be the same as it would have been this year. So they got just beyond lucky. They just so fortunate. I mean, gosh, for a while there, remember the thing with Altuve and his buzzer or his rumored buzzer when he hit the walk-off home run in Game 6 of the ALCS against Aroldis Chapman. That was all anybody could talk about for days and sometimes weeks. I mean, how often is baseball the main topic on so many of these shows, like Cowherd, Broussard and Rob Hart? I mean, it was the main topic on so many shows, and that was the main topic in sports for weeks. I mean, especially post Super Bowl and pre NBA playoffs, it's kind of a little bit of a dead time in sort of the sports talk world. That baseball was getting some key was getting the key coverage that it had never gotten before, especially heading into the season. You had Correa, with Ken Rosenthal, like telling someone on the Dodgers that he didn't know what the hell he was talking about. There was some serious trash talk. I believe it was Justin Turner, or someone can check me on that. But baseball had never had this kind of spice and flair before. I think it was really good for the sport. I think the ratings for the season were actually going to be the highest they'd ever been in a while. And now, assuming it doesn't come back until next season, the ratings are probably going to be lower than they've been in a while. So I think baseball really missed out on an opportunity to see like a real, true villain, in addition to the Yankees. So,
yeah. If baseball were not to come back until next season, what would the punishments be? That's kind of what I want to know. Like, would they alter the way the punishments have been for AJ Hinch and Jeff Luhnow and all these guys? No, because
that out for a year. I mean, then I don't know.
It also affects all the contract stuff. I mean, you think about the Dodgers trading for Mookie Betts, and expecting to get him for this whole year, and then everything's going to be changed if.
Yeah, so I have a good friend who works for the Indians, and he basically told me that, look, everyone's just going to go a year forward, and that just is what it is. Maybe things will change. I think all the sort of, everything that's about to go down with baseball will probably go down in the next few weeks. So I think we'll find out about that shortly, and then we'll discuss on this pod. But look, I'm as bummed as anybody because I think the A's had a great shot to win the World Series this year. I think their pitching staff. I won't go too nerd heavy on the A's on this spot, but they, in terms of the players on contracts that were payable, because as we know, the A's trade players away as soon as they are about to hit free agency. So the timing of this year was going to be really good for the A's, both on offense, defense, and pitching. So look, I'm as bummed as anybody. I just don't see how they can bring the season back, like we said. So yeah, the Astros. I will still boo them, whenever I get the chance. So as I'm sure many people will.
Yeah, definitely. Do you think that the 2017 championship should have been vacated?
I don't know.
I have my own thoughts.
I'm not a big. You don't think so?
I don't know.
Like I'm like reluctant, but I don't think it should have been. Look, it's sort of like when they vacate like these college basketball championships, like they because someone sold, or they vacated like Reggie Bush's Heisman or something. Like, dude, look, we all saw what happened. We all have eyes. Like, we can't just like erase it from our memory. So I don't know. I sort of feel like just what's the point,
Mm-hmm. No, I 100% agree. Like, history can't be undone. I don't think I've never liked vacating wins or championships or whatever, because it doesn't change anybody's memory of what happened. No one stops thinking of USC or Louisville or whatever as national champion. No one stops thinking of Joe Paterno as having all those wins. No one, and on the same note, no one's going to stop.
That's a different. I don't know. But go ahead.
But it's still the vacating of wins. Obviously the reasons are very different, and
yeah, for sure.
And obviously one is far worse. But the
I would argue that actually I would have stripped it in Paterno's case, but I digress. That would be like my one exception. But
But
Anyway,
my point being,
yeah.
regardless of how you feel about that, it still's not going to change your memory of him being the winningest coach of all time, or anything else. It's not going to. So vacating the Astros championship, it doesn't change the memories of that postseason, because that was incredible playoffs,
Oh, big
and
time.
I mean, just the intensity was next level, and it's not going to, the fact that suddenly now by the record books, the MLB doesn't consider the Astros to have won the World Series that year. It doesn't change how I'm going to remember that. It doesn't change the way I think about it,
Sure.
and
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't affect it for me in any way, really.
Yeah, honestly, for me, I almost think that by keeping it, you almost let the Astros sort of deal with the shame and deal with knowing that people look at them differently, and knowing that people will have a sort of a mental asterisk of that championship, versus, like you said, if they take it away, then people will say, no, but. So then the sort of public opinion might actually swing towards the Astros, even just a little bit. So I think actually keeping it makes them almost look worse.
Mm-hmm. And
Just like everyone knows the circumstances surrounding that year. So
yeah,
why do you take it away or not? I mean, what are you going to take away? Their championship rings? Are you going to take away, the paychecks that you get for going deeper into the playoffs? I mean, I just don't. There's so many things that would have to be revoked, and then to go back in time.
Mm-hmm.
Look, at the end of the day, Altuve is going to have shame. Correa, freaking Justin Verlander, who was on his high horse talking about, there's no room for cheating in baseball, trying to be, the veteran leading voice, calling out every other team when they would do something questionable, both when he was in Detroit and in Houston. And the whole time, or at least for the last few years, it was going on right behind his back, right under his nose. And he said nothing. So look, the Astros at some point, whenever baseball comes back, they are going to have to deal with quite a lot of animosity towards it, right? And they'll deserve every single second and every single boo that comes in their direction.
Yeah, and
obviously.
Also, one more thing I will add is this idea of vacating the championship. It feels to me like that's very much the equivalent of sort of wagging your finger and going, no, you did a bad thing, like not actually punishing them for anything. Like, I don't want to see you like retroactively punish someone for a thing they already did. Like, they can't really be punished for. My point is, I'd rather see the punishment be for the future, down the line. Suspend some individual players who you believe like
draft picks maybe too.
Suspend Altuve, suspend Correa, suspend Bregman, suspend whoever. One thing I was thinking about is like a 1 year postseason ban. Like even like going something as far as that, like how like you'll have like a bowl ban or an NCAA tournament ban for college teams. Why not try the same thing here? Why not say like, okay, no matter what you do in the next season, you can't make the playoffs? Like for example.
But before we move on, I just want to say the only problem with that is then if they finish with the best record, then wouldn't it almost be like, so let's say the A's came in second in the AL West, but they got to go to the playoffs. And if the A's ended up winning it all, then wouldn't there be an asterisk around them? So then they wouldn't get as much credit, and then it would affect people's memories for them. And then I would just take away draft picks, salary cap money that they can't, so the salary cap gets cut in half by 30%, whatever, something like that.
I think one thing we can both agree on in that way is there should have been more. The punishments they were given probably weren't enough to. I think the overall punishment should have been harsher, but I think we can both agree that vacating a championship kind of wouldn't have been the way to do it.
I agree.
Yeah. All right. With that, we're going to move on to our closing segment. As always, we're going to try to do a little bit of special segment at the end of each episode. Maybe not related to the news, but just something fun, a little fun sports discussion to close out the show. This week, we're doing a segment called Would You Rather? In this bit, the two of us will give each other would you rather hypothetical scenarios, and we'll have to pick which option we would like to choose. You want to go first, or should I go first on this one? Or
why don't you go first?
All right. Question 1. Right now, would you rather start your NBA team with Giannis or Kawhi?
I would probably choose Kawhi. I would choose Kawhi. As much as I love Giannis, this game is still a little bit too one-dimensional. And when it comes down to not crunching time in the playoffs, he needs to be able to have new ways to score. Especially like a mid-range, a post-up, a turnaround jumper. His three-point jump shot is too inconsistent. He needs needs to diversify his way, the ways he can score. As much as I love him and as great as he is, and as much as I would love for him to be on the Warriors in a year.
Yeah, no, for sure.
How about you?
Yeah, I'd rather go Kawhi. More experience, more experience as the team leader, more playoff experience, more sort of versatile all around guy. Yeah, I'd go.
There's more ways he can score.
Yeah.
Also, Kawhi gave it to him in the playoffs last year head to head. So, all right. So my first would you rather question is: would you rather start your team with Luka Doncic or Zion Williamson?
I would rather start my team with Luka. First off, he's been in the NBA for a little bit longer, so he has more experience. Also, I think he's similar to the Giannis Kawhi. I think he's more complete player, better passer, better shooter. And someone who you can trust to put the ball in his hands more and lead your offense. Whereas Zion is a phenomenal athlete, great inside scorer, all those things. But Luka, I think you can trust him to lead your team more than you can trust Zion to lead your team. I don't know. What do you think?
Actually, I would probably say so. It's obviously close. They're both going to be any Hall of Fame players. Needless to say, I would actually take Zion. I think Luka. I mean, look, he'll obviously be great. I think they could both win MVPs. I just, at least for Zion, I think he's a couple years younger, but also there's no defense that I think is going to slow him down. I think at least for the next few years, I think in the playoffs, Luka could actually get disrupted by some physicality in the postseason. I mean, Zion is bigger, faster, stronger than everyone, more athletic, and he is a decent enough jumper, at least to keep teams honest. I think, and like he's good off the dribble. He can switch on defense. There's one scout that said he was like Draymond Green with rockets in his ass. So there's a lot more things that he can do on defense. So it would make me give him the slight edge.
I think I will say I think that could change over time, but right now at this exact moment, I go Luka.
Now, at this exact moment, yes, I would say career is Zion, but at this moment, I agree.
All right, question 2 for me. If you were a wide receiver, would you rather catch passes from Aaron Rodgers or Drew Brees?
I would say Drew Brees because of the drama seems to be less common and to a smaller degree with Drew Brees. It seems like he's just not that Aaron Rodgers is a bad guy, but there seems to always be friction or drama or unnecessary noise. As we know, more than any other sport, football and football locker rooms like to and need to block out noise from outside the building, as they like to say. And so I think it's close enough. I think Rodgers is a little better talent-wise and has a better arm, obviously. I would say Brees is a little more accurate and has less. He brings along less distractions. So I would take Brees.
Okay.
Yeah. How about you?
I think it depends. I think if it's one game, I'm going Aaron Rodgers just because I trust him more to put the ball in my hands on any route in any situation. Play breaks down, he has to scramble. I have to improvise, whatever, that sort of thing. If it's a season, then I'm going Brees for the reasons you talked about.
All right, I'll say probably peak Aaron Rodgers, and right now probably Brees.
Okay.
We're talking one game. Okay. Would you rather dunk on a 7-footer, like as a poster and like pump your chest, let's go, or hit a 500-foot home run and pose and just stare and just hold your pose and just look at what you just accomplished? Because both are like just both would just feel incredible. I would love to feel either one of them.
I would rather dunk on a 7-footer and flex on him after completing the poster dunk. I've always, I don't know, maybe I'm an old cantankerous guy for this, but the risk of getting the 500-foot home and posing is you're gonna get a ball at your head next time. So I know I don't want a 95-mile-an-hour fastball coming within 2 inches
really?
of the bat.
Sure.
So I'm posing on the guy, I'm dunking on the guy, I'm flexing on him, and just getting the crowd fired up that way.
Yeah, probably me too. But both are probably the two of the top like sports macho moments for sure.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah,
right.
no, I would probably agree with you.
All right, round 3. If your life depended on it, would you rather have to put the ball in play against Adam Wainwright or score a penalty shot goal against Carey Price? Let's assume you're able to skate and and not have to think about it.
This is like if I'm facing Adam Wainwright, I get just one pitch
No, you get one at bat.
when I bat.
Mhm.
All right, then I would still go Carey Price because then at least with Carey Price, I can control what happens. Like at least I'm in control of the puck versus if I'm getting pitched to, I have to react. Plus, he can even throw me, curveball, slider, 80, 85, 90 miles an hour. So at least if I'm in control of something, I have some chance in hell to do it. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would agree with that. I think with Carey Price, there's a better chance there's gonna be some fluky situation where I just sort of happen to put it in the one place he can't get it and put it in. So I would go Carey Price as well.
All right. Who would you rather listen to talk about sports? Kendrick Perkins or Reggie Miller?
Ooh, man, that's tough. I would go Reggie Miller because yes, Reggie Miller can be annoying sometimes, but at least he just doesn't say ridiculous things just for the sake of saying ridiculous things. And it's obvious Kendrick Perkins, I think, has some I think the LeBron bias is pretty far out there for him. And with Reggie Miller, at least I don't love Reggie Miller, but at least there isn't that level of bias in the stuff he says.
That's true. Probably me too. And I think also when you listen to them, you also know at least Reggie could hoop, and Kendrick Perkins was, he's a bum talking like he wasn't,
Mm-hmm.
So.
All right. My last question here. This one's very important, so pay attention. Would you rather have an MMA fight against 5 chicken-sized people or 1 person-sized chicken?
Say it one more time.
Would you rather have an MMA fight against 5 chicken-sized people or 1 person-sized chicken?
5 chicken-sized people versus 1 person-sized chicken. Yeah. Probably 5 chicken-sized. Probably 5 chicken-sized people.
Okay.
I think I could at least ward them off, and I could probably see a lot of them, like keep an eye on a few of them at once, and ward them off. I think having a chicken, I feel like would be too. Chickens have so much energy. They're so just sprouty and quick. It would just be hard to manage. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Wait, what do you think? That is a hell of a question. Wow.
Yeah, I'd probably go 5 chicken-sized people just kind of for the same reason, just hold them off and hopefully win by decision or something. Whereas a chicken, it can claw at you and peck at you, and it's really big, and it's just constantly going to be moving around. And
plus, couldn't it poop and distract you and stuff like that, right?
Yeah, probably, and also just flap its wings a lot, and that would probably freak me out if I got in the octagon with it. So,
sure. Okay, that's a good question. My question, I thought I had a ridiculous final question, but it may not be quite as much. Mine was, would you rather have a hot dog eating contest against Charles Barkley or a free throw shooting contest against Shaquille O'Neal?
I would rather have a free throw shooting contest against Shaq. I think because that one I think I might actually be able to win. I'm not a very fast eater.
That's funny.
I'm not a very fast eater, and I feel like I actually do a pretty good free throw technique. Just take a couple deep breaths, bounce the ball, good motion, flick your wrist, and hopefully knock down. Shaq was only a 52% career.
Well, I said would you rather, not what you have a better chance of winning, but I got you.
Yeah, I'd want to enter the competition. I think I have a better chance of winning, and
okay, that's fair.
And
usually me too, but
yeah, and we've known each other for a long time. So you know this. I'm a very slow, methodical eater. I don't like to stuff food down. So
I got you.
So with that in mind, I probably hopefully, depending on how Shaq's doing that day, hopefully I only need to hit 6 or 7 out of 10 to win. So
7. No, yeah. If you hit 7, you can just leave. You don't even have to watch him shoot. You should just you'll be in plenty good shape.
I don't know. He's going to shoot better without a crowd and without without the game situation. So I'm sure he almost in practice.
I was watching a clip a while back that he was I think when Kristen Ledlow, the TNT reporter, when she first came to TNT, I think she had a free throw shooting contest with Shaq, and I believe it was most out of 5, and I think they each made 1 out of 5, and then he won the tiebreaker. So he's not Still not exactly precise and on target with this shooting.
Yeah, and he's not shooting regularly anymore, so maybe I can catch him on an off day.
For sure. For me, I think I would probably I probably have a better chance of winning against Shaq. But if I could at least not have to eat the buns, I would probably do the hot dog. I mean, dude, eating hot dogs with Chuck. I mean, what could possibly be more fun than that? It just seems like there's nothing that could possibly just top that experience. Especially, I don't know if anyone out there has seen like his rant about the Suns, and he's like, they got those cold buns, amongst the other things that he complained about. Chuck is just such a cool guy. I would love to 10 minutes, let's go.
I'll tell you this. I would love to golf with Charles Barkley because we're both very bad. I think that would be a fun way to keep it entertaining, even if I'm getting frustrated at the way I'm playing. So,
well, speaking of people who have no chance of winning, Chuck at golf, I think probably fits that though. So, I think his Chuck's golf swing is like uglier than someone's face after like being punched by John Jones or something. It's terrible. It's terrible. So
yeah. Anyway. All right. Hopefully at least at some point in our lives, one of us gets to hang out and have some kind of competition with Charles Barkley so we can report back and
we'll say back when we were doing this podcast that like hardly anybody listens to, and we were in college during quarantine. Remember then? Well,
yeah.
Well, like added like in a new update to the podcast. So yeah.
Oh, definitely.
For years from now when it happens.
Absolutely. Well, we'll talk all about it on Good Take on the Good Take podcast. All right.
Absolutely.
That's episode 2. Thank you so much for listening or watching. Be sure to check us out on Twitter. I am at AlexHutton35. Zevan is at ZShust9.
That's ZSHUST9. Again, ZSHUST and the number 9.
All right. That's all for now. We'll see you next time.